Okay, this is going to be part three or part two, but part three video. So yeah, we're going to go over this donation center problem now, and we're going to be using. So in the problem, I asked you guys to pick one of these two, and again, this should have tipped you off that you should be using a queue for this. Um, if you start off with the stack, it's fine. Hopefully, through some trial and error, you realize that this is the correct data structure to use for this specific problem. So, but let's go ahead and read the prompt. So, a car donation center receives and restores old cars that people no longer need and gives them away to people in need. The donation center is environmentally conscious and only accept cars with a V4 or a V6 engine. Okay, and the people who come to pick up the cars, they must take the oldest car at the time of donation. Or they can select which one they would prefer, a V4 or a V6 engine, and then they will receive the oldest type of car, the oldest car with that engine type. And again, this is based on the time of donation. Okay, this isn't based on the year of the car or anything like that. Um, okay, so and then it also says here if they have no more cars um, of the engine type, then they will receive whatever the next oldest car is. And then here is a breakdown of the class. So you have a constructor that is taking an array as an optional parameter. And this should be a big hint because that's what you did with these two. Donate accepts a string description of the car, including the engine type. So you can put anything you want in here, as long as you have a V4 or V6 in there. It should be fine. You can put up the whole type of car you want, right? You put the make, the model, the year, everything. But you just have to make sure that the engine type is in there, and it will pick it up. Um, Giveaway. Okay, so giveaway returns the card that the user asked for. If the user does not have a preference, it will return the next card given the order of the description above. So, and then get inventory returns the car inventory in string format. So this should be pretty reminiscent for you guys. This constructor is going to be pretty much the same as this. You're just calling that inside of it. Donate, donate should be reminiscent of add or even push. And then give away should be reminiscent of remove. Okay. And again, given this constraint right here, you should think about it and come to the conclusion that it is going to be this one and not pop. Okay. Um, that's give away, and then get inventory. Get inventory is going to just be toString, right? That's what you're going to call, and you're going to see that in the code. A lot of this, really, these constructor, donate, and get inventory are just going to be calls to these methods. The giveaway method has a little bit more to it. That's kind of the tricky kind of crux problem of this. That's where all the work is. No, I don't think it's too bad. I think the hardest part was really getting this to work, getting the queue created. Once you have this created, this is fairly straightforward. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the code. So here we have our car donation class. We have our inventory, and that is a private node queue that we have, and this is the same node queue from up here. Um, and here's our constructor. So we have an array of cars, and here we can donate the car, and you pass the car in, and you add it, and all that's doing is it's just adding, just calling this add method. Very, very much the same stuff. It's that's how it's going to be for this get inventory as well. Again, you're just calling the toString method. Um, and again, the only real work is in here. So let's go over it. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to get a parameter engine, okay? And the engine is optional. It can just not be anything. So if it's not anything, if we just call it regularly, so if you look down here, for example, on line 170, right down here, we have it calling with no parameter. And if there's no parameter, then that is the equivalent of the customer not really having a preference. They just want whichever one is the first car available. Um, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check if the inventory is null or if it's empty. If it is empty, we're just going to return null. Otherwise, we're going to continue, and now we're going to check if there is an engine type. So did they pass a parameter of what kind of engine they want? If they did not, well, then we're just going to go ahead and return whatever the next, the first item is, the first car, right? Um, and then we have the other case where they did have something. So they've put either V4 or V6 preference. So the way that we do this now is we're going to copy the inventory over. Okay. So there might be other ways to do this, but this was the simplest way that I could think of that would be easy to follow. But the way you would do this is you could pretty much create a new inventory, and we're going to take the original inventory and we are going to eventually copy it over. But here's how we're going to do that. So again, we're creating a new inventory, a new queue. We're going to let car equal 0. So this is the car that we're going to end up the car that we're going to end up returning. And then what we're going to do is we're going to loop through the inventory, right? The current inventory that we have, and we're going to loop through it until it is empty. So this is saying while it is not empty, we are going to remove a potential car. And if the potential car includes the engine, okay, and this includes is a string method that pretty much checks if the string contains whatever we pass into it. So in this case, it would be like V2, V3, or not V2, a V4 or V6, right? The engine type. So if the string includes the engine, then we're going to go into this if statement, and we are going to say, hey, we found it, sign it to the car, and then break. Otherwise, if we did not find it, we are just going to add this car that we removed, we're going to add it to our new inventory. Okay, so we're copying it over. And this is just an easy way to just kind of delete something that's in the middle. It's like, again, there's other more involved ways you could probably do this, but for the sake of keeping things simple, this is I think the easiest way to do it. Okay, so that's what this loop is. So we're going to recap. We are checking if it is empty. If it is, we're turning null. If there is no engine preference, we're just going to remove whatever the next one is and just send that back up. Um, Otherwise, we are going to create a new inventory. We are going to keep track of if we found the car or not, and we're going to loop through that inventory, the original inventory. And as we're looping through it and looking for potential matches, we are every car that we remove, we are going to we're going to add into the new inventory. And if whether we found it or not, we're going to end up going into this into this while loop. So this while loop is pretty much checking again if this is empty or not. So if we did not find it, so in the case that we loop through everything, okay, let's say all we have is V4s and the customer wants a V6. In this case, this is going to end up being empty and it will not actually go into the loop. If we did find it, so let's say they did want a V6 and we did have a V6, then this would not be empty and we would have to empty out the original inventory. So here we have it assigned to the C variable and we're just re-adding everything to the new inventory. And that's how that works, okay? So this is just taking whatever's left over, if there is anything left over, and moving it into the new inventory, essentially, okay? So then in this line 154, we are just assigning the inventory, the original inventory, to the new one. So we're replacing it. And now we are checking. We're saying, okay, if car is null, so that means we did not find it. So for example, again, this is the case where um, the car that they wanted was not available. So let's say again, all we have is V4s, but they wanted a V6. So in this case, we're just going to return a V4, whatever the next V4 is. Okay, because the car is going to be null. Why is it going to be null? Because it was never assigned in this loop, because we never found a car that has this engine. Okay, and it's assigned up here as a null, as you can see. Okay, so that's where this comes in. Otherwise, We did find it, and we're just going to return the car that we found with the engine. So let me give you a little demonstration of how this works, okay? We're going to run the code. Um, so here we are. Okay, so here's our car donation. And in the first console log, right here, we are logging the inventory. So here's our original inventory. So we have a V4, V4, V6, V4, and two V6s. So here we are giving away, in the next line, we're giving away a V4, okay? And that's going to be this line up here. And we're giving it away and we're console logging the result, which in this case is indeed the V4. And now, as you can see, that was the first one that it found. And V4 is left over. There's only one in the front because this is the one that got removed. Okay, and now the next line we're going to give away a V6. So V6, now this one's going to get removed up here, right? So, well, this one here. And that's what happened, right? So this one gets removed. The next result's going to be V4, V4, V6, V6, right? Because this V6 is gone. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of how it goes. Oh, and here's one. Here's one for non-preference. So it's just going to take whatever the next one is, which in this case was this V4. Okay. And again, V4. Again, there's the more V4s now. Now there's a V6. Here's a V4. They wanted a V4, but now because they didn't find a V4, we're going to just end up giving them a V6, right? They asked for a V4, we didn't have it. Well, here's a V6. Now all that's left is a V6. Again, they can ask for a V4, and we give them again because that's all we have is a V6. And there you go. This is the other edge cases where it's empty, and now we're returning just null whenever it's empty. Okay. I'll have this code in the solution as well. I'll put this in there, and you guys can play around with it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please let me know.